guys, welcome to the Wildwood Show. I'm Meghna,
And I'm Upamanyu.
and we've got a great show planned for you. We are obviously going to be talking about our headline topic, which is how major traders are exiting the historic soy pact, making them the bad soy boys. And we're also going to be talking about how Malaysia has lost 20% of its coral reefs in 3 years. We have some more updates and we have some other exciting news. Exciting in the sense news. But oops, what else do we have on the roster?
Um, Continuing on the Malaysia conversation, we also have a good story from coming from Malaysia where they have banned e-waste imports. And the other story that we'll be covering is about sharks. Um, sorry, not sorry. I'm a little dazed today as I'm reading wrong. It's about pesticides and it's the direct harm it's causing to wildlife globally. This has been revealed by the study, and as Meghna said, we will be also covering some little bits and pieces of smaller updates as well. Intro.
Yes, so our headline story. What's happening in the Amazon? Amazon deforestation may rise 30% as major traders exit historic soy pact. This is an article by Mongabe. Major soy traders, Cargill, ADM, and either Bunge or Bunge among them, are withdrawing from the Amazon soy moratorium, a 2 decade agreement to halt soy cultivation on newly deforested Amazon land. This decision, driven by Brazilian Farmers Association, ranchers, and agribusiness linked politicians, could increase Amazon deforestation by 30% by as early as 2045, potentially pushing the rainforest past a critical tipping point. This move follows a new law in Mato Grosso, Brazil's top soy producing state, which penalizes companies adhering to stricter environmental standards than legally required. So imagine that this is the standard, you want to do better than that because you care
I think there's some technical problem on Meghna's end. But anyway, this when we were scripting, this came across to us as very funny as well, in the sense that, um, you know, why would you want something to be more, I don't know. If there's a law and people are doing better than that, if there's a limit, if there's a threshold, and um, there are people who are willing and are capable of doing better than that, why not empower them to do that rather than giving them the showing them the law and telling them that this is the minimum requirement. You have to do less than this. Like you have to be less compliant, and you can't go overboard, especially in things like you know environmental standards, where everyone tries to go underboard rather than overboard. So this law is basically saying that um, you can't go overboard with all the um, you know um, your efforts towards environmental conservation and things like that.
did you finish reading the entire uh, summary?
No, I did not.
Okay. So, critics warn that this signals approval for land speculation and rainforest clearing. Brazil, the world's largest soy exporter, sees nearly 45% of its shipments handled by the withdrawing companies, the moratoriums end allow soy sales from previously restricted areas. And I think we see this increasingly, that we prioritize profits over the environment, and we see that as a healthy sign of growth, of rapid expansion, of development, as we would call it in an economy. And this happens a lot with developing economies, because they want to rise and they want to grow, and they want to prove themselves better on an economic scale. It comes at a cost, and it comes at the cost of the environment. And in Brazil, this is what is happening. But I don't think they realize that Amazon is literally called the lungs of the world. So if they're going to cut down on the Amazon, they're cutting down on the next biggest carbon sink after the ocean.
Yeah. Taiga, also the taiga in North Pole. Um, Now the thing is, and we like, I still can't, like, what could be the reason you think that the government would be like, I can't comprehend a single reason where a government would be like, you do less good than what you're doing right now because there is a law that says so. um because
Yeah.
in this world, doing like more in, especially as I was saying, in environmental scenarios, everyone is trying to do less than they have to, because of obviously the the capitalistic side of it, and everyone trying to save money and thinking environment as an afterthought or a secondary thought or whatever. um why would a government like penalize people who are going above and beyond? And I'm not saying, like, I'm not imagining a situation where these people are deliberately going above and beyond. Maybe due to their processes, because their processes are efficient and end to end, very environmentally friendly, and they have invested that time and effort and thinking into their processes. As a result of that, they are by default saving some more than they ought to. So why would a government curb that? I can't come up with a single reason for that.
I honestly don't know. I think the only thing is that they're trying to promote more and more, probably, soy producers to come in into this area and grow. So their way of doing that, or signaling that we're okay with more deforestation, is to penalize the ones that are actually doing something good for the environment. Because I think this is the first time I've ever read anywhere saying that I mean, they're penalizing companies adhering to stricter environmental standards than legally required. Like, I've never heard it anywhere across the world. I mean, anywhere across the world, they want you to keep doing better by the environment. So this is I don't know. And also, I mean, to our viewers, you might think that soy is the enemy, but did you know that almost 80% of the soy is produced for, uh, you know, your cows and your goats and everything to eat, like especially cows. So the soy that is produced across the world is not really produced for humans. It's really produced for the meat that we eat. So to fuel that. So this deforestation is directly linked to poultry and your habits of meat eating, and the pressure on the consumption of meat.
Yeah. Soy and corn, these are the two most produced um cereals, grains, whatever you call them, in in the history of humanity. And it takes up a lot of resources, it takes up a lot of space. um you know Forests have to be cleared, and the demand keeps rising, both for soy and soy products, and also for meat, which is basically cows being fed that soybeans and corn and husk and all those different things. So yeah, it is. I would be very surprised if this trend goes down, because Brazil, through its laws, have made a very clear statement that they are, as Meghna was saying, open to investment in the soy sector. And um, yeah, I would I would project this to go up rather than down. Again, this reporting has affected Brazil. This kind of reporting has affected Brazil in the past, as we followed through the shark meat story. And the only thing we can do is hope for a similar outcome, because I imagine there would be people who are actively tracking this issue, conservationists, on ground, on field conservationists, who would be actively tracking this issue with the government, the current local government.
Yeah, I think the thing is also that, um, moratoriums, when you have a moratorium, it shouldn't be so easy to withdraw from it. Like, there has to be like big, the penalization that they're talking about, it should be on trying to exit a moratorium, because anything that
No,
is
no,
in
they are
place.
not exiting it. The moratorium just ended because moratoriums are for fixed durations.
But they're literally saying they're withdrawing from the moratorium.
Um,
They
in the
said that,
article, do they say that?
yeah, yeah, they've announced the withdrawal from the Amazon soy moratorium. So it's one of the world's most successful zero deforestation agreement, known as the soy moratorium. And now they're abandoning it and they're exiting it.
Right. So then there's clearly needs to be a stronger legal framework than just a moratorium.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I mean, there should be penalization for abandoning or exiting these kind of, moratoriums or pacts, like, saying that, okay, I would not. And this was one of the world's most successful deforestation agreements. I mean, when it was that successful, it makes zero sense in my head to exit from it or abandon it. Obviously, I understand that, as a company, you want the profit. So now you're like, okay, I think now we are at a place where we can exploit more forests, because we've already exploited whatever we could. But it can't be that easy to just step back and say that, okay, I'm exiting this. Give me more land. I want to grow more uh, soy at the cost of the forest, so I can feed more cows and some humans. And let them die even if they can't breathe. At least they should have some soy to eat.
yeah, I think that trend. I don't know. I don't know where this is headed and how we are going to cope with it in a few years' time, because this is going to come and impact us heavily once that threshold point passes. Or we as nature lovers and conservationists or conservation minded people are completely wrong, and these businessmen know something that we don't. Either that, or we are all headed for that dreadful day when that threshold is crossed and we enter the point of no return. um, because it seems like it's 2 steps forward and then 10 steps backwards, kind of a um, loop.
Yeah, it does say though that the new law that came up across in Mato Grosso, the legislation that says that it allows the state government to suspend tax breaks to companies adopting environmental criteria beyond those required by the Brazilian laws, such as the soy moratorium. So the abandoning has also come in because Brazil has brought about this law saying that you do not need to adopt these environmental criteria. We can suspend your tax break if you adopt this. But this law is currently facing challenges before the Supreme Court. So I think someone has filed either a PIL or has filed something where this is being questioned. So it is there in front of the Supreme Court, but we do not know in which favor it would go.
Yeah. Such a law doesn't make a lot of sense to us, but I don't know. There might be some political, social, or economic reasons that Brazil might have chosen to do it. But it's good that it's facing a challenge in their legal system and the judiciary, and hoping that this reporting also brings about, um, or adds to or strengthens that point they're making toward into their legislators, etc.
Yeah, because I think what they're saying is that because the tax breaks were put on hold because of this new law, so these companies exited saying that we need the tax breaks, so let's just exit. The government apparently is in favor of protecting the forests, and they want to, but it is actually the farmers, ranchers, and local politicians. So it's not like the federal government, but the locals, they are against the federal government's crackdown on illegal deforestation, and the increasing pressure from international markets for deforestation free products. So this Mato Grosso law came in effect because of the local political force. Because it
Mm,
just wasn't good for them. It just wasn't good for the rural producers, all the politicians, because their agribusiness, they only benefited from this kind of deforestation. So that was on the line, which is why they locally started pushing against, um, which is sad. So it's a cycle where the locals have pushed for something which they do not understand is going to be bad in the long run. And then the companies have exited because they don't have an option if they had to save their tax. And now the federal government and the Supreme Court have to figure out if there is a way to stop this madness.
mm. I think that's the reason why this. So the reason for this law now, it doesn't make sense, but now I can see why this law came about. Gives me more context that this was a political move basically to go against the the central government, which is, again, overall it's sad for the Amazon. And I don't know how the politicians and the local ranchers and the farmers that operate within that area fail to see that. I am truly, um, you know, I can't explain this. Um, and living so close to this magnificent place, I guess, yeah, no, I was going to say living close to a place which is such magnificent would inspire you to do more, but that often is not the case. Um, as is seen here as well. Um, yeah, soy, corn, and all these large scale farming, I think comes back, as Meghna was saying, to the meat industry, beef industry in specific. Requires a lot of resources. Sometimes you wonder. Sometimes you wonder.
Yeah, and I really don't know what else you can feed cows. But I think for now, it's a very soy based world for them, where soy and corn is mostly exported or imported by countries for this purpose, so that their cows can be fed. And or it's something to do with the kind of beef it produces, like when the cows eat this, or there's some kind of standard. It must just be like a
No,
standard.
it's just I believe it's just economics, where it's just because it's cheap and easy to acquire. That's basically it. Because a cow's natural diet is grass, high quality grass, good quality grass. That is obviously very expensive, both to procure and maintain. So
Yeah.
this is very cheap.
Yeah, I think with grass also you would need to have those kind of lands where you have a lot of grass, as opposed to if you had to get soy and corn, you can just have them in bags and then you can just keep feeding. So you don't need to have that huge space to just let them graze. So I think that
Hmm.
way the space constraint is not there. But also, I think one of the things that they're saying in the article is that Brazilian traders may face challenges in reaching large international retailers, though, such as Tesco and Walmart, that have adopted zero deforestation policies. Um, the EU has a uh, EU regulation on deforestation free products. So it bans products originating in areas deforested after 2020. So other countries have bans on importing certain products. And even if the Brazilian, I don't know how they're going to find a loophole through this. Maybe they might actually um, sell the soy that is complying with the regulation to the EU and other places. But they might actually keep the deforested soy within the country. Not sure, but yeah, that is also a pushback that they do have.
Look, these corporations can say a bunch of different things, but I don't believe they would adopt anything or stay true to their word when it comes to the profit they're making from those things. So I see it as very unlikely, but at least if they're saying it in their publishing material and in their marketing material, at least there might be, say, 1% truth to the entire thing. But yeah, I don't believe in those claims, because remember how in one of the documentaries, I believe it was The Cove or Seaspiracy, how they were saying a dolphin safe mark meant nothing. um
Oh, that way.
on
Oh, you're saying the EU might have strict laws, but there might be a way of just getting away with it by putting like a small mark. So you feel like the EU is like whatever countries are banning deforested free products, there
I mean,
might be a
countries
way
are
to.
not producing these meats. They are private organizations that are producing these
Yeah,
meats.
so they can just claim whatever, and then these companies would just import them because it says that they, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they would find loopholes for all of these things. For sure, they'd find loopholes. I mean, if they can find a loophole to get out of the moratorium and just deforest the entire Amazon, then definitely they can find a way to get their products to the places where deforested free products are banned.
true, true. Cool. Should we
Yeah,
move on
let's
to the
go.
next one?
Yep, yep.
Cool. This is again similar on the lines of farming and, you know, production of farming goods. This comes as a report from The Guardian, which is headlined Stark Warning: Pesticide Harm to Wildlife Rising Globally. This is a find from a study. A global study reveals escalating ecological harm from pesticides between 2013 and 2019, despite a 2022 UN pledge to halve pesticide risks by 2030. Utilizing a new totally applied toxicity TAT framework, researchers assessed damage from 625 pesticides across 65 countries, representing 80% of global farmland. Insects experienced the largest surge in toxicity, 42.9%, followed by soil organisms, 30.8%. Worryingly, harm increased for most species groups, with only aquatic plants and land vertebrates showing declines. Lead author Jacob Wolfram expressed high concern, particularly for developing nations and biodiversity hotspots. The findings serve as a stark warning regarding the continued threat to vital ecological functions. Um,
And it's
yeah,
and it's well known. Like we've known for years, I think, growing up also about how pesticides are not great. But again, it's the same thing probably like the soy and the meat industry. That there is global demand, there's global pressure, like that you need the vegetables in this much time, you need the meat in so much time. There's so many mouths to feed, there's so much global demand. That is where these pesticides come into play, because there were things like earlier, obviously there was a time where there was some kind of natural ways of protecting your plants, but that went overboard. Like we came up with pesticides to a level that we were like, okay, if we just keep spraying these pesticides, we'll be fine. Like like the plants will be fine, we'll get a big produce, but we don't see the effects those pesticides actually have.
I think this one, um, like, I'm just thinking, also thinking about the soy part as well. Um, don't really know if there is a way out of this, because high volume production to feed nearly 8 billion mouths. Now, for soy and what it actually helps raise, you know, beef, um, is kind of debatable. Where one can say that try to reduce your beef consumption, or try to be mostly vegan, or 3 days vegan, or whatever, or try to be completely vegan. Um, Now that same argument cannot be made for the vegetables and fruits part of the thing. Every one of them is equally important, and I don't know. I'm not a farmer, so I can't comment on this. But without pesticides, I don't think the large volumes would be able to, like, we would be able to raise that large volumes. And this is also a chicken and an egg problem, where their organic farming exists, but until there's demand, the prices won't go down, and until the prices go down, there won't be demand. So
Yeah, plus I
this one baffles me a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know if organic farming can be, scaled to such a big thing, because organic is meant to be something that you have to really like continuously monitor, and look after how it works, because um, yeah, I'm sorry, but my phone is not working and my phone is ringing. I can do nothing about it.
Can you
Um,
not press the
I
buttons?
can't. No, no, no. The screen's not working, so there's nothing I can do. Like there's literally nothing I can do. I can't switch it off. I can't do anything about it.
Right.
So just bear with me for a minute, because uh, because the phone is apparently working, but the screen is not. So there's nothing I can do about it. So sorry about that. But yeah, with organic farming and permaculture and all these ways, these were what we started out with. Like these were the original farming methods. Like they did not require pesticide, like pesticides. They did not require different things. There were certain insects that actually helped with the growth of certain plants as well. But those are things that are manually, I think, more labor intensive, because you have to go and check on them. The other alternative oops can be those, like how in Iceland they're growing vegetables in those greenhouses. Like that could be an option, but I do not know how big you can make those greenhouses, how sustainable they are, like as opposed to uh, like a farm, like those those what are those called, like those greenhouses which scale up vertically, like you can
Hmm.
grow different plants vertically.
Yeah. I can't remember the name. I just remembered it and then forgot. But yeah, it is that, what we those are alternatives. But then again, the thing is, um the cost. Anything that would have costed, like, not cost, like, costs. I don't really know whether those greenhouse production produced agriculture, and that method of agriculture is sustainable or cost effective. But it's also what what the farmers get the most from. More than the farmers, the people above the farmers who are buying it, what they can get the most from and exploit that system the most. And unfortunately, this system, this toxicide ridden farming system, has been so fixated and it has been so fixturized that every moving part has, yeah, it is a well-oiled machinery. So moving away from it, there will be a lot of backlash from farmers. There'll be a lot of backlash from, the people who are dealing and trading in these particular things. And even if we deal with that, if there's not enough demand, then it'll be really, really difficult to achieve that. And also, like, think about this, like, which if there is an insect found in any of your vegetables or any of your fruits, then I think um, it will be something of a different level.
No, you
Um,
remember while growing up, in fact, it was very normal to find like worms and other kind of insects when you cut a fruit, and you knew that certain fruits had insects or certain fruits carried these worms. And then you would actually like just, like either place the worm outside or throw away the worm or whatever it was. But there
just
was
cut the
always like,
piece with the worm. Or whatever.
what? Stuff the piece with the worm?
Cut the piece
Oh
that
yeah, yeah,
contained the
cut.
worm.
Yeah, yeah, like cut the piece. So there were these live worms sometimes, just crawling, right? In fact, you remember there was this ad which was really famous when this lady is cutting, I don't know which vegetable, and she sees this worm and she gets really scared, and her son comes in, and he takes the worm, and then he puts it in a little jar with like a little, he makes a little environment, and he names it Pintu. So it talks about how different people look at the same thing differently. So like he embraces the worm. So it was very normal when we were growing up, but now you don't see, like, everything is very shiny. There's nothing that is actually real anymore, like even
Mhm.
in vegetables, like, because I think the GMO based vegetables have taken over the market, and the genetically modified ones are supposed to be more resistant to a lot of worms, insects, and all of that. So um, it's just a very different way, I think, now, like, because like they would use
Mhm.
heavy pesticides, plus they would use modified products, like modified seeds to grow these.
Yeah, that is what I was trying to say. Like, I remember uh, in our childhood as well. Like, there used to be worms, and that was a normal thing, and that was a part of the cleaning process that you had with vegetables. But right now, people don't have the time. We are looking at pre-packed vegetables and pre-cut vegetables, supermarket bought vegetables, and the supermarkets just plain discard vegetables, not even for worms, but just for looking a little, you know, not like the image of a tomato or image of an apple. The popularized version of an apple. If it doesn't fit in that version, then that apple is discarded. And people, I think, if people saw a worm in their thing, it would become a TikTok sensation and everyone will be talking about it. And whichever supermarket they bought it from, that supermarket would face a lot of backlash. So
Yeah,
I
I
think we as a society, we as a people, we are also won't be that tolerant if something like this happened. So, it's again that chicken and egg problem.
Yeah, and maybe there might be ways of changing the chemical framework of what pesticides we use, because that might help in reducing the toxicity. There might be, like more environment friendly pesticides, like, or something that does not increase the toxicity in all these insects and of the soil and everything. The problem is that if it leaches into the soil, it leaches into these insects. They're part of the framework and the hierarchy, right? Like, so the birds would feed on the insects, there would be other animals that feed on the birds, there would be animals that feed directly on the soil. So if this is leaching into like nearby areas and everything, it goes up the hierarchy. Eventually, obviously, it ends up in our stomach through some or the other hierarchy. And that we do not understand, that these kind of pesticides and the toxicity, that when it's increasing in other organisms, it is going to come back to us.
I actually liked what you mentioned briefly before, GMO.
Hmm.
If we can take GMO to a level where we don't require pesticides anymore and all these things are naturally resistant, I don't know if that is possible. So I'm speaking on my toes here and just thinking out loud. But if that's possible, that I think would be a very good win win solution for everyone involved.
But I think GMO plants come with its own kinds of what would you say?
But
Not
it won't affect the environment.
Yeah, but it lacks a lot of it's not naturally how it is supposed to be. So even when you grow those plants and the kind of interaction it has with the organisms and everything, it's very different. And the kind of taste and look and everything is very different to what normal non-GMO plants look like. It might be something that could be scaled and effectively can be used, but at the same time, I think, oops, we've reached this place where we're 8 billion people. No matter what we do, we're going to hurt the environment. Like, like if we're going to deforest more for soy, we're hurting the environment. If we're going to spray more pesticides, we're hurting the environment. And when we're hurting the environment, we're hurting ourselves, because we don't want to call ourselves part of the environment, but we very much are. In the end, it comes back to us. All of this comes back to us. So sometimes I just feel like it was great for the entire Thanos concept, like like you click once and 50% of the population is over. Like, it that is probably the only solution for the kind of pressure that the
I
environment has.
I think I've gotten an epiphany, which is that without food, a human being would die in a week. But without a little bit more of the Amazon, the human race would die maybe in 100 years. So I
Yeah.
think it will be never possible to reconcile that 1 week versus 100 years in the collective minds of all humans.
Yeah,
So
I think what you yeah.
yeah, that urgency, I think it is very very hard to convey that urgency.
That is absolutely true. Like, anything that is not urgent will not go, into people's heads. So it's the same thing with pollution. Like, here in Delhi NCR, where I stay, the pollution levels are skyrocketing, but people don't care because you cannot see the direct effects very soon. Like, even though you're like dying a slow death, or like how people say that don't smoke cigarettes, you're gonna get cancer, or you're gonna die a slow death, because you don't see the effect just in a week or in a few days. You think it's fine, everything is fine, you live with it, you adjust with it. And it's similar to that. Like, even if you're going to cut down the Amazon today, you might not feel the effect of it till the world literally starts burning and there's nothing left for you. And when you know that, okay, now everything's gone and there's no way the human race would survive. So right now we keep stretching the environment thin, thinking that, okay, it will give us some more time.
Yeah, I think similar things like intelligent ways where the environment can be spared. You mentioned a couple of solutions like vertical farming, like hydroponics, maybe. Then there is, GMO. We can deal with a little bit less taste and we are killing those bugs anyway. So if they don't pollinate those plants, let them not pollinate it.
And then
You know,
organic farming and permaculture, but
organic
that
farming and permaculture would be a parallel thing all the time. I think it's more for the rich rather than the common people. But
it
um,
used to be the norm for the common. They were the ones who were actually involved in it, right? But now it's become
no,
a
but
global
scaling that
thing.
up is difficult. Scaling that when we grew to such a large population,
Yeah.
then scaling that up became more and more difficult. And when, especially countries like our country, where a huge chunk of the people and a huge chunk of our GDP is from agriculture, a lot of people depend on it, and agriculture by its nature is very weather dependent. So we're trying to slowly take out um, the natural dependencies that we have, um,
Yeah,
to feed
and
these many mouths.
it's crazy. I mean, we think about the earth and we think about all these problems, and I just recently read, I don't know if you read it, and I don't even know if
Mm.
it's true or not, but they're saying that Musk wants to nuclear bomb the poles or in Mars, so that the ice melts and it becomes warmer, like the planet becomes warmer. The carbon dioxide in the air would thicken and it would warm up the planet more. So it might make it more habitable, because right now Mars is freezing and it's really, really cold to live there. So that is one of the solutions that apparently Musk has come up with. I honestly don't know. I mean, I feel like we've already like kind of destroyed our planet, and the next planet that we want to go to, uh, we're destroying it even before we reach it. Like, did you hear that
No, no, there
news?
is a 10-step plan to make Mars habitable. I don't think Musk specifically came up with it, but there has been this plan that has been floating around for the past 20 or so years. So there is a step by step
Bombing,
process.
bombing the
Bombing,
polar caps.
bombing and laser blasting the entire planet to warm it up and make rivers and all those different things, to fill its atmosphere with greenhouse gases so that heat can be trapped more efficiently within the planet. So I think there is also a starkly different way of that these people, and I am doing this us versus them kind of an analogy here. There's a starkly different way these people look at things, which is inherently different than our worldview. The worldview there, and I think I sit somewhere in the middle, more maybe more towards the um, you know conservationistic worldview, but I also see the expandist and the colonist worldview as well, where we are colonizing different territories and different planets, and this is just a vessel for us to, um, I don't know,
No,
be
I mean,
happy.
I honestly feel like, there's this one Earth that we've destroyed or we're destroying in the process of, completely, I don't know. But I just think we should let Mars be. Like, whatever it's doing, I don't know what exists there or doesn't exist there, because we don't have a lot of data. But we
Hmm.
should just let the other planets be. And we've already seen that we cannot take care of this planet, that we're not capable
No,
enough
but
to
that
actually.
is what I'm saying. That their worldview is that, like, what we'll achieve by taking care of it. Like, that's their worldview. What will we achieve
So,
by taking
so
care of it?
so you're saying their worldview is that, oh, if the earth is burning and
Yeah,
I'm not able to live here anymore, I should
yeah,
just leave the earth and go somewhere else instead of trying to reverse that damage.
correct. That definitely has to be. Otherwise, I have no explanation why people would
But
do that.
that but that is literally because of you. Like, I mean, like us, like as a human. species. I
Yeah,
mean, like
yeah,
we're the ones destroying the earth, and then finally when it gets destroyed, we're like, yeah, fine, okay, bye bye, I'll go somewhere else because I can't live with you anymore. But that is because of us. So
but
how to
that's how humans are. Like anything gets too hard, we just quit that and start new.
But tell me this, if you've already destroyed one planet, then you're going to go and destroy more planets. You're not going to like have a place to stay at all, and somehow the species would be wiped out because of this, because we cannot sustain on even one single planet, right? Like,
Yeah,
isn't that the takeaway, that if we have destroyed one planet, there is no guarantee we won't destroy more? Like, how
yeah.
how is
So
escaping a
there
solution?
in their worldview, it is that we'll colonize another. When we are done with that, we'll colonize another. When we are done with that, we'll colonize another. That is the worldview, basically.
And do you think we're anywhere close to colonizing other planets? Because I honestly don't think. I think we'll be wiped out on this earth before we get to another planet. I
I
mean,
have read the plan to colonize Mars, and it sounds doable. That is what I'll say. To me,
wait, wait. So we've not gone back to the moon after the
yeah.
the famous Apollo mission,
Hmm.
and people have not been able to reach there. Like, like the people who went in 1969, was it 1969?
Yeah,
Nobody's
90s.
gone in the
Yeah,
last.
60s.
Yeah, so it's been 50 years and nobody's gone to the moon. But you
Yeah.
are confident that before we destroy the Earth in the next, let's say, in the next 80 years, we would have a solid plan to get to Mars.
We already have a plan. That is the thing. We already have a plan, and it just remains to be seen whether that plan can be executed. To me, the plan sounds executable, but only time can tell.
And you think bombing another planet and warming it up will not have long term consequences when we start living there? If we start living there. Let me put it as if. Like, I mean, here on the earth, everything that we have changed, it's actually changed for the worse. So
Yeah,
you think
I mean,
anything that we modify there
we
will
won't
actually
know
change?
until we do it. That is the thing. We won't know until we do it. And if it comes to that, then I don't think any government, like everyone, would prioritize their survival over everyone. And like this will be Earth will be the place for the less privileged, basically people like us, where we can't afford that trip to Mars, or
That
even if
would
we can. It is an egalitarian kind of worldview that these people possess.
true, but you're saying that the less than 5% of the world would be able to go then, like less than 5%, right? Who would be
Less than
actually
five
able to.
percent, and the lesser privileged, who are again desperate enough to be brought into a new kind of space slavery, let's call it
Space slavery? I don't know. I honestly don't feel like it.
interplanetary slavery, whatever. I don't know.
I don't think you or me would be alive to see the destruction of this planet. I mean, we're alive to see whatever destruction is going on right now. But I think, and I honestly think that there is no way that we'll be able to reach Mars. We would all kill ourselves, like in some way, like we will go extinct before we reach Mars. I honestly feel that.
Well, let's see if the couple of missions that are lined up in the next few years to bring humans to Mars um, actually succeeds. And if that does, then we can probably think about the next step. But anyway, um, I think there exists a couple of solutions to this problem that we talked about: greenhouse farming, and then hydroponics, and then there is GMO, using more GMO, um, and using less pesticides. Because introducing harmful chemicals, I don't think it can be good for anyone. Like even humans. So yeah, let's see if, because there has been a rise of these methods that Meghna mentioned, and we will sort of not follow this particular story, but we'll follow this. We'll all go through this shift in general as more and more people of the general public start becoming aware of these issues. Um, there has been a study where it says that Gen Z and Gen Alpha is more conscious towards these issues. Um, so yeah, let us. It is a waiting game basically. Um, but anyway,
Yeah.
I think that is all we had to say about this particular area.
Yep.
We can probably move on.
Yeah, let's move on to the next topic. I think before we do the Malaysia related topic, we can do a couple of um, updates and um,
Mm,
yeah, different species discovery. There's one very not funny but really nicely named frog that we came across this news. So it says "Good luck, Dua Lipa." So like Dua Lipa, but this is called Leaper. So Leaper. So good luck, Dua Lipa. Scientists return frogs wiped out by fungal disease to wild. Green and golden bell frogs have been reintroduced to the Australian Capital Territory nearly 50 years after being wiped out by the uh, chytrid or citrid uh, fungal disease. The first 25 immunized, microchipped, and individually named frogs were released at Mawson Ponds on Tuesday, marking a significant conservation milestone. Led by the University of Canberra, the project aims to release a total of 375 frogs across 15 wetland sites around Canberra. Researchers prepared the sites with spas and saunas to maximize the frog's survival chances. The chytrid fungus devastated amphibian populations globally, impacting 90 species in the last 50 years. This reintroduction offers hope for the species recovery in the ACT. And yeah,
this is a cool one. Do
yeah,
they have a photo?
yeah, that's what I'm just opening. Yeah, they do have a photo. Let me just share it real quick. 1 minute. Yeah, we've actually done no sharing today. Okay, this will be the first sharing. Um, yeah. So this is the frog.
Cool.
Yeah, it's one of the frogs. It's the yeah the green and golden bell frogs. Yeah. Yeah, they're called Dua Lipa. I think that's the this is some of the the spa and saunas that they're talking about. They're showing the frog in the environment, but I think yeah, I think they have like little ponds that have the spa and sauna kind of system. That's the
Mm,
frog in there. Yeah, that's pretty much the story. But that's nice to know that I mean, obviously there would be a niche for these kind of species in the environment that they used to exist in, so they should be able to blend back into that environment. So let's see how this Dua Lipa succeeds.
true. Um, there is another update from the story we did last time. This is from the Guardian as well. Parents of Piper James visit Kegari to farewell daughter and walk where she last walked as Dingo Cull continues. The parents of Canadian backpacker Piper James have arrived in Brisbane, beginning an emotional journey to Kegari, Fraser Island, to farewell their daughter and walk where she last walked. Piper was found dead near the SS Maheno wreck on January 19th after a solo swim. Todd and Angela James will participate in a traditional smoking ceremony with the Butchula traditional owners, intended to honor Piper's spirit and offer healing. The ceremony is a significant cultural protocol for the community. The visit comes amidst ongoing debate and a dingo cull following Piper's death, raising questions about coexistence between tourists and wildlife on the island. The James family intends to return Piper's remains to Canada following the ceremony. Um, Good that the parents are coping with it. Well, they could voice their thoughts on the dingo cull and what they think about it, but I think they're in grief too much right now to, comment on that or have any thoughts on that. But it's good that they're dealing and they have found a way to you know deal with that grief and reconnect with their daughter's spirit, um, reconnect with their daughter spiritually in some way, which shall give them some closure, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Now we'll get back to the bigger topics,
Mm-hmm.
which is the Malaysia one. So, Malaysia's lost 20% of its coral reefs in 3 years. Malaysia's coral reefs are rapidly declining, losing roughly one fifth of their cover since 2022, according to a recent Reef Check Malaysia survey of 297 sites. Live coral cover now averages under 40%, down from nearly 50% in 2022, a loss comparable to losing 4 million hectares of
Oof.
forest. The decline stems from overlapping threats. The 2024 global bleaching event impacting already stressed reefs due to pollution, development, and tourism. Physical damage is rampant, with trash, abandoned gear, and anchor scars found at most sites. Illegal dynamite fishing persists in Sabah. Even protected marine areas show limited recovery, indicating ineffective management. This loss threatens fisheries, shoreline protection, and coastal economies, raising concerns about food security and livelihoods. And I don't think people understand. Obviously now in this article, what I really liked is they've not just thrown numbers, but they've tried to like tell you what it actually means. So losing one fifth of their cover within 3 years is insane, because that is too quick. Like that is too quick of a timeline to lose that much of coral reef. And it says that that loss is comparable to losing 4 million hectares of forest. That is crazy. And when you think of the ocean as the main provider of oxygen, it's scary when you think that corals can be lost that soon.
Mm.
Also, obviously, there's ineffective management, as they've spoken about in the article. uh, and I think Oops and me, we've come across a lot of articles where if you let the environment thrive, if you manage the corals effectively, then they do recover, they become healthier again. And there's like a massive growth of fish and other marine species in the region, but that requires effective management.
I think uh, we will put a link somewhere on the screen. But we did a guest segment with one of the coral researchers, and she basically reiterated the same. And her research was about even a certain kind of coral is um, changing their biology, and I kind of see that as a very last ditch effort by these corals to fight back. So imagine if we give them space, if we have certain minor changes. I think during COVID, we proved that even the most tiniest amount of changes in the shipping times, in the shipping paths and the kind of pollution the ships emit, and trying to control that and having checks on that can impact the sea so much. Within those 18 or so hours, nature kind of recuperated with the absence of human activity on the oceans, especially the oceans. I think it's the matter of making small changes which would impact us, which would impact our bottom lines a little bit, but it would mean a lot to, and it would not mean a lot, but the impact on the environment and the ecosystems would be very visible. I think that. I think that is pretty true.
Yeah, I think there are like so many examples of even that place like Fifi, near Phuket. Like not Fifi. What are those islands? The ones where a lot of movies were shot. Was it Fifi only? Where mm, where there's
I
this
have no
one.
clue.
No, so there's this one place where because of over tourism they had to close down because the corals had gone for a loss. Everything had gone for a loss. So they just stopped tourism, and now there's like regulated tourism, like very less boats allowed and everything. So it has brought the sharks back, like
Hmm.
the nursery of the sharks back. It's brought back life to the corals. It's like the entire area has recuperated because they've kind of put a stop on the tourism, and they were okay with like losing out on tourism for those areas but letting those places recover. And I think Malaysia needs to do something similar, because if it's pollution and it's tourism and other kind of things, there is a way to manage it. It will take a couple of maybe like stringent laws and little bit of income loss, but it would help out in the future, because once these reefs would recover, it would bring in more tourists. The problem is, I think, with all of our developing economies, like if we can get a little bit of money, we'll do everything unethical possible.
I mean, we can't just blame the developing economies. As we'll soon see in the next news we cover, the developed economies are the same, basically the same.
They are. They're
Just to
true.
play, and they try, the developed economies try to dump all their problems to these developing economies, taking advantage of their capitalistic superiority, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like obviously developing the developed economies are the ones that um, contribute the most towards environmental harm, but at the same time there are also some, they're more effective in kind of managing, like the kind of laws that they put in. And the so if they had to really stop a problem, or they had to like control a problem, or they had to effectively manage it, they would do a better job than developing countries. They wouldn't go
Yeah, because their companies, their organizations would just dump that toxic waste or whatever they're creating to these developing nations. That's how they will manage the problems. Because once a toxic thing is created, there's no way you can just click a finger and make it vanish, make it go away. That
true,
has to be
true.
dealt with somehow.
True, but here it's not about toxic waste, it's much about tourism and management. And I think most developed countries, actually, it's weird, but I think because developing countries are also cheaper, there's like some more and more tourists that like come to the developing countries as opposed to the developed countries, because of the cost and everything else that you have to see. So there is more tourism burden also on developing countries.
True, true. Um, and I particularly found the anchor scars to be especially gashing, because I would think, at least while anchoring your boat or ship, you would be aware, because now ships have these mechanisms, the scanners, and all these different sensors, that enables a ship to scan the ocean floor and all these different things. I would think that at least while anchoring, you would choose a spot where there is no corals.
But no, no, it's like, the kind of boats that you're talking about are probably like big ships. Like what they're talking probably about is a lot of boats like that take the tourists out for snorkeling, and they take the tourists out for just, taking people out to just see. So these boats, they don't know, they go from experience. But it is possible that because there are no norms and no strict regulations about protecting the corals, that they can just drop their anchor anywhere. If there were stricter laws, I'm sure that the local fishermen know where not to drop the anchor
Yeah,
line.
I think it is an easy solution because someone who ventures into the sea, as you said, regularly will know where these corals are. And even if they don't know, it's just a matter of jumping in the water and doing a quick check. If there are if there are any corals in absence of any sensors, just use the human eye and do a quick sense check before dropping the anchor. Um,
It's not that easy. Visibility isn't that great everywhere, so you have to actually
I
take
mean, I would
whatever
imagine
care.
where corals are, the visibility to be decently great. And especially if it's
Mm,
for tourism.
yeah, but not
Corals
necessarily.
are generally in shallow reefs.
Yeah, but I mean, generally, yes, but it depends on where they're taking and for what purpose they're taking and for where they're anchoring. So it is possible that it's not. But I think the main problem here is the regulation than the boats. Like if the boats were regulated, if they were told that you cannot drop your anchors in these spots, then and there were like stricter checks about it, then probably these boats wouldn't drop their anchors. Because I have been out diving and I've seen how different boats take different precautions. Wherever there's strict regulation, the boats are really careful about dropping their anchors, and they're very careful about where their anchors go in and how they have to pull their anchors out and everything.
Yeah. I think um, the regulations, again, it's, I see it as a chicken and egg thing. I believe, this is one thing that, you know, spoke to me from the article, that can be easily rectified on an individual level.
Mm-hmm.
Trashing, abandoning gear, or anchoring inside. There must be 10 other sites where you can legally or illegally, you know um, drop gear or drop anchors. But as fish people, or as an ocean people, I would expect better from the skippers and the crew operating on these kinds of tourism boats. Now, dynamite fishing, I've never heard of it. Sounds very dangerous. Sounds very, um,
You never heard of
you
it?
know,
You know what they do?
I have
So
not.
it's actually really sad if you go to these spots as well. So I've
I
been to
mean,
one
that I
of
imagine dynamite when it came in the word. I imagined it would be very devastating. But go on.
Yeah, so there are places in Indonesia as well where dynamite fishing used to take place. So when you go underwater and dive in these places, there's just like it's like a graveyard of coral. So they're just like pieces of dead coral all across the floor. Because what they do in these dynamite fishing areas is that they drop a dynamite, they let it blast. So there's like a radius of it, but outside that radius, like basically it there are like a lot of fish that are dead, so then they just scoop out all the fish, and that is how you fish with dynamite fishing. um so it is a
Yeah.
way to stun and kill a lot of fish, and then like just like drop a net and then get in all these fish. So it was an easier way to do that. But they would drop these, like, I mean, it's not really a dynamite, it's like some kind of thing that explodes underwater. This they never, like, took into account the kind of environmental impact it would have, because they did not realize that the fish that they were trying to collect literally survived on the coral. So if you're going to blast the corals, then you wouldn't have fish later to survive on. So it was something that was very prevalent across, I think, a lot of Southeast Asian countries. It's been banned in a lot of places, but it's really weird that Sabah still has it. So Sabah is the Borneo region, so it's really weird that they still have it there, because there are other areas like Semporna, and there's which area in Malaysia, I forgot. There's this really um, great marine reserve. Um, though those areas are really really protected. um but in Sabah they still have dynamite fishing going on, which is really surprising.
Yeah. Um. So I think there is laws, but on an individual level, um, there might be something the sea people um are able to do as well. We have spoken about the negative side of Malaysia, and there is a positive bit of news coming from Malaysia as well. This comes from a report published in Mongabe, where it says Malaysia bans e waste imports, vows to end illegal dumping, which is exactly what we were talking about, which was, you know, laws to protect um, protect these areas. So it says Malaysia has imposed an immediate and complete ban on all electronic waste imports, declaring it will no longer serve as a global dumping ground. This is what we were talking about, like, economically developed nations dumping all their waste on economically, you know, developing nations. The move reclassifies e waste as an absolute prohibition, eliminating previous exemptions granted by the Department of Environment. This decision follows growing concerns from environmental groups regarding the toxic substances lead, mercury, and cadmium found in discarded electronics, which can contaminate land and water. The ban coincides with a corruption investigation involving the Environment Department's Director General and Deputy, accused of abuse of power related to e waste oversight. Authorities are actively enforcing the ban and investigating illegal smuggling operations, freezing accounts, and seizing related funds. This is, I would say, a job well done
Yeah.
in case of Malaysia.
Yeah, a lot of developing countries, including ours, we do actually import these kind of waste that other countries produce, and we become the dumping grounds, and we become the grounds where we have to probably burn it, or we have to get rid of it, which makes zero sense to me, because like we're not the ones producing it. So there has to be some kind of global norm or global law that every person's waste is theirs. Like, I mean, when it comes to individuals, we always say that your waste is your waste, right? Like, like, would you throw this in your home if it was like this, so you have to segregate your own waste in your home. You're responsible for it. Then how come countries can just dump the waste on each other?
I think it's just a matter of my space looking clean. Let me throw all the garbage out into the road, out of my vicinity. It's like stuffing your cupboard with all the, mess in your room, just to make your room look clean. Um, that's the thinking here. I'm pretty sure. Um, but it's good that Malaysia has realized it, because it's not that Malaysia is not creating e-waste. Malaysia themselves will be creating e-waste. Any country on the face of our earth right now will be generating some level of e-waste, and you know they have to deal with their own e-waste, and on top of importing e-waste from developed nations. So it is a question. It is a good move. I'm sure they would let go of a lot of that sector and a lot of money that was involved. But it's a good move on the Malaysia government's part.
Yeah. And I think more and more developing countries have to stand up to this, that it's your waste, you take care of it. You do whatever you have to, but don't dump it on us. Like, why should we be the ones bearing the the environmental distress that this kind of waste causes? Because you, as a developed country, chose to cause that waste. So it should just be your responsibility to somehow dispose of. It shouldn't be our responsibility, like the developing countries.
True. True. Yeah, I think this is the way of the world. And this pressure on the developing nations, because they have the resources for research and development, would, I believe, it would, you know, force them to make some provisions and inventions that would be better, that would better the state of this issue in general. Better ways, efficient ways to deal with e-waste, or creating electronic products which do not turn into e-waste as frequently as they do currently. um
Yeah, I think the thing is also, oops, a lot of these trade deals, when they happen, like, I mean, the recent trade deal I was reading, that we actually, it's part of the trade deal. So if you want like the bigger deals, um so the developing countries would be like, okay, I'll give you all of this, and this is like a fair deal, but you have to also take this waste as well. So it's one of those things that come as an ancillary product. So you kind of have to say yes, because you, as a developing country, cannot have the upper hand in deciding these kind of things, because you know that there are 90, excuse me, there are 90 good things coming out of a deal. So there,
mm,
there would be like the 10% of whatever things, other things that would come. And most countries cannot take these kind of stands. So it's really great that Malaysia has taken this stand. And I hope in the wake of Malaysia, other developing countries do the same.
True. That's a really good thought. um what do we want to do next, Meghna?
I think we'll do a little bit of back to updates, then the bigger news first.
Mhm.
Um, so we actually started with a moratorium story, and there was another moratorium story that is an update. So it says that global moratorium on whaling, a defining moment, turns 40. The 40-year moratorium on commercial whaling, enacted in 1986 by the International Whaling Commission (IWC), is hailed as a pivotal conservation success. Stemming from a 1982 vote, the ban aimed to rescue whale populations decimated by centuries of hunting. While Japan, Norway, and Iceland exploited loopholes to continue whaling, most nations adhered to the moratorium, contributing to whale recovery. Initially a whalers club formed in 1946, the IWC now comprises of 88 members focused on whale and dolphin conservation. Despite lacking enforcement power, a 2014 International Court of Justice ruling against Japan's Antarctic whaling demonstrated international pressure can be effective. The moratorium's passage represents a defining moment for the IWC and a crucial step in protecting these magnificent creatures. So, on one hand, we have the soy moratorium where people are trying to exit because of the changing laws. And on the other hand, we actually have a global moratorium on whaling, which still stands true and is actually putting pressure on the countries that have been exploiting these loopholes. Two sides,
Mm.
same word, moratorium that exists. So, if you want, you can actually stick to it and you can see the effect. So we've brought the whales back because as humans we came together, we said we do not need to whale, we do not need what the whales are offering. We need to protect them. That is more important.
Yeah. I particularly don't like the idea of a moratorium. It can be very effective in the short term, but if that is the norm, then it is very easy to get out of, because Moratorium, by definition, is a temporary prohibition of an activity. Temporary being the key word there. So that is why it is so easy to get out of a moratorium, like Japan, Norway, and other countries have done. I think it's only Japan right now, but it is very easy to get out of a moratorium. There, the world deserves a more stricter framework for these kinds of issues, not just a moratorium. That is my
That
view.
no, I completely agree with that. But I think a moratorium is a starting point. There has to be more enforcement. But I think more enforcement has not come its way because countries have anyway, like step back from whaling. But it's not just Japan. Iceland also whales every year. I'm not sure about how much Norway whales or what are the permits that are given, but Iceland does have whaling permits that are given every year, so they do exploit those loopholes. This was actually one of my deciding factors to go to Iceland. Like there were, I think, for the last 2 3 years, there's been some kind of ban on whaling. I'm not sure if that has resumed, but I just didn't want to go to a country that was supporting this kind of thing. It's the same with Faroe Islands and their Grinder trap, because it makes zero sense to do such kind of things where things like the entire country, like the entire world has banned it, but you still want to go ahead and do this.
Yeah, no, my problem with the with moratoriums is that it is hanging by a thread, and it is on a whim of any country, that this can change. But I would not take away from the fact that all of the nations that used to whale, 88 members, um, they are focused on the conservation side of things now for the last 40 years. That is a great win for global cooperation and global partnership. And we talked about this extensively in one of our previous episodes, that wouldn't it be great if we could replicate this success for other issues. But unfortunately, I think this was a uniquely placed issue, uniquely, marketed and uniquely talked about issue, which is reaping its benefits even after 40 years. So, great job on that. All the different countries that do adhere by the moratorium.
Yeah. um yeah, I mean I mean there should be probably better enforcement for countries that are finding loopholes. So now, because it's been 40 years, they can actually have like a proper pact or a legally binding contract, so that countries don't go astray. But still, there are most countries are not going astray. For the countries that do go, there should probably be better legal frameworks. But it's still great that the whaling has always been a success story. The anti-whaling has been a success story, and we can see the whales thriving in the wild.
Yeah, that is a great update and a very heartwarming update as well. Um, let's see. Which one do you want to do next, Meghna?
You want me to do something, or do you want to give like
I mean, choose
one?
one. We can. Anyone can do it.
Why don't you do the polar bears?
Ah, yes, that one was a good one as well. And I like National Geographic covering National Geographic reports because they always will have great, great
Photos.
pictures.
Yeah.
Um, So sharing something. This is obviously a polar bear, and it's looking straight ahead at you. This is a great sight. Now let me first just read out the snippet. This comes from National Geographic, as I said. It is titled "These Polar Bears Are Getting Fatter as Sea Ice Melts. What's going on?" And this is a finding, this is a research. And as is with all the research, we do try very hard to get in touch with the researchers and try and bring them into the show. But for now, the snippet reads: a new study offers a surprising glimmer of hope for polar bears in Svalbard, Norway. Despite sea ice declining twice as fast in the Barents Sea. Compared to other habitats, the local polar bear population has remained stable and even increased in body fat since 1987. So, this is obviously a long term study. Researchers analyzed data from 770 adult bears, so it is not a small sample size by any means, measuring body size and chest circumference, expecting to find declining health. Instead, they observe the bears getting fatter. This suggests that the Svalbard bears have adapted to changing conditions, potentially by accessing alternative food sources. While not a universal solution, this finding highlights the potential for some polar bear populations to demonstrate resilience in the face of climate change's impacts on their icy environment. And the question we pose here is, could this localized success offer adaptable strategies for polar bear conservations uh, amidst climate change? What are your thoughts, Meghna?
Yeah, I think I honestly don't know what the getting fatter means. If it is good, it is bad. Is it a way for the bears to actually want to just eat more because they you know how they said that when we were hunter gatherers we would come across a fig tree, we would like really just stuff ourselves because we do not know when we would get the next sweet treat or something like that. So I don't know if there is more food sources that are available, or is this a way of them trying to kind of stock up because they do not know how much food they're going to get come across. But it's still heartening to know that the polar bears are getting fatter. It is a positive story as a whole because the sea ice is melting, but they're still adapting to whatever sources of food that they can get.
And I think many an animal, whether we like it or not, many animals will need to do the same thing, because this sea ice will keep on melting. This is another photo from the article. This you know beautifully represents the kind of environment these bears are living in. Fragmented sea ice. This would have been their hunting ground at one point in the history, whole sea ice. And for those of you who don't know, polar bears are very good hunters on sea ice. They would smell their prey from above, and they would make these holes in the sea ice and just go under and catch their prey from those fishing holes almost. Seals being one of their favorite preys. So this picture beautifully demonstrates the habitat change and the climate change, how it's affecting and impacting the polar bear specifically.
Yeah, they're also saying that because polar bears specifically actually hunt on the sea ice or between the floes, and go and hunt different kind of marine mammals and other kind of things. When the sea ice is actually receding and the sea ice is melting, they're spending more time on land. And on land, the energy expenditure isn't as much as they would spend in the sea. So that might
Mm.
also be a way that is why the Svalbard bears are getting fatter. So on land, they would be going for like seabird eggs or the seabirds or different um, different sources, and that might not require as much energy that they would be putting into the ocean when they're actually going out into the sea, between the sea ice and actually hunting.
Yeah, I think that could be a reason. We would try not to speculate too much because there has been actual research on this. And I think a similar story we covered a couple of weeks ago, where there has been some evidence to suggest that the polar bears might be going through a change in DNA of some kind. So again, glimmers of hope, but the sad reality, unfortunately, is that a lot of animals, a lot of species will have to go through this specific um, rigmarole of adapting to their, like, forced adaptation to their changing environments, which, yeah, which I feel is very sad, but the reality, unfortunately, as we repeatedly say.
Yeah, I think Svalbard is one of those places where they say that there are less humans and more bears.
Mm,
It's one of those places where it's inhabited by bears and lesser humans, only because I think it has like a really, really, really long period of darkness. I think proper 6 months because it's right up there. So there are very few people that actually find the place habitable to stay. So it's a small community up there. But because Svalbard is land, so these polar bears, when they cannot hunt outside, they hunt inside, and and it says in the article that these polar bears have actually found alternatives that they don't have in other areas. So here they catch reindeer, and these reindeer have boomed after they've recovered from the excessive hunting by humans, so the humans are not hunting them as much anymore. So these reindeers are providing a food supply during summer when the polar bears are typically fasting. That might also be a reason why the polar bears are getting fatter, because they have sources on land. It might not be ideal, it might not be their actual food source, but there are food sources on land for them.
yeah, it's good to know that they're adapting. Um, yeah, at least the future generations will be able to see polar bears. Cool.
Yeah.
That was a
Uh,
good story.
Yeah, there's actually one more interesting bit in the article though. It says that because there's reduced sea ice, it could be forcing ringed seals into denser groups around the remaining patches of ice, making them easier to hunt. Which means that there are lesser and lesser, patches of ice. So a lot of seals are probably on those little patches of ice. So it's getting easier for these polar bears to hunt because they're only lesser places. So more density in lesser sea ice.
The as the article says, the good news is that they're still in good health. This is a quote from the researcher, and I would add to this that the only good news is that they're still in good health, because bears are affected by climate change. They have been forced to spend more time on land hunting less energy rich foods such as seabirds, eggs, and swim further and further between hunting and mating grounds. So, as I said, like, I modify and paraphrase the quote to say the only good thing is that they're still in good health. We have all seen those photographs, um, heart wrenching photographs of, the malnourished polar bears, I'm sure.
Yes,
Um,
yes, there was one
and
by Paul Nicklin itself. That was a really, really, really sad image to see. It was a really thin, malnourished polar bear walking on the.
yes, and
Yeah.
these are supposed to be the biggest carnivores on land. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
but
so let's hope that the genetic changes that are happening and them getting fatter, this continues, and there is a way for the recovery of sea ice, because if the sea ice completely disappears, we might actually be losing out on all the polar bears. So let's hope that we can do better, and we
I
don't
mean, it
actually
would be
lose out.
naive to think there would be like a way to recover sea ice, but definitely there is a way to prevent it from degrading more. And let
Yeah, I
nature
mean,
take its course. And then if nature is kind enough, then some recovery as well. But it
Yeah,
is
that's
it is out of our control. Basically, recovery is out of our control. The only thing we can do is reduce consumption to enable, you know, I sort of enable no further damage.
yeah. I mean, that's what I meant. I meant that if we could just protect somehow, because it's not like the way the polar caps are melting. It's really really quick at the moment. So let's hope that that we continue seeing polar bears.
Yes, true, 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 true. Cool. We might have time for a few more topics to go through them.
Yeah,
Um,
let me just choose one. Um, yeah, I think I'll do the So it
mm,
says agave or bust. Mexican long-nosed bats head farther north in search of sweet nectar. Mexican long-nosed bats, an endangered species with fewer than 10,000 remaining, are venturing farther north than previously known, reaching the Gila National Forest in New Mexico. Driven by drought conditions in their traditional feeding grounds like New Mexico's Bootheel, the bats are seeking healthy agave plants, their primary nectar source, further afield. Um, I don't know if I'm getting agave right or wrong in
I think
pronunciation.
it's
I've always,
agave.
are you sure? It might, could be, because, I mean, I've always only read about it. Like, so it's supposed to be like a maple syrup alternative in a lot of food, like recipes that you would make. So, yeah, it could be agave. Research, including DNA evidence from agave plants and hummingbird feeders, revealed they are traveling up to 100 miles beyond known roosts. This extended journey, adding nights to their migration, highlights the need for desert grassland restoration on both sides of the US Mexico border. Conservationists emphasize this is crucial for the bat's survival and the continued pollination of agaves, both slow breeding species. Um, at least in this case, the wall isn't causing a disruption in their journey. But the sad part is that because their traditional feeding grounds, they don't have access to it anymore because of the drought-like conditions. They have to go this much farther, which means that they're spending more time out, and they might be spending less time, with reproducing, which would slow down their reproduction. But it also means that because they are you know it is crucial, like if the bats don't survive, then probably the agave pollination might also be harder.
Mm, mm. It is this pattern. I think this is a pattern, again, similar to polar bears, like polar bears going to hunt longer and longer distances for, in search of food, um, or, having to venture very much inland and focusing on less protein rich diets. This is very, very much similar to that, traveling longer distances. I think this will be a problem which can be seen across species, because the polar bear part also mentioned, the distance between the hunting and mating grounds, um, and similar is the case, um, uh, in the case of the Mexican long-nosed bats. And yeah, as you said, like, great that they're flying creatures, so the wall is not affecting them, but you know other others might not be as fortunate. Is there a picture of the long-nosed bat,
Oh
or
yeah, 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 there should
agave?
be.
Agave. I think both pronunciations are correct, but
Yeah, I just checked it actually. After you told me, I went and checked. So it's really weird, but the British pronunciation is agave, and the
mm,
American pronunciation is
what is
agave.
the
So
what is the Mexican pronunciation? That is the main question, because both will be anglicized or Americanized. Um, uh,
wait, before I do that, I'll just share this, and then I will search for the the
Yeah.
Mexican pronunciation.
Yeah.
It is possible if it's Mexican, it would be agave because they do have the um in
The
their
intonations of
yes,
American
yes.
English.
No, no, no. You know how they have the cafe, so the like
Oh,
generally in
the
Mexican, the
right,
Spanish
right, right.
way, yeah, the Spanish
Mhm.
way of
Oh,
whatever they
you'd been
would call.
learning Spanish. Yeah, you'd be able to tell me. Yeah.
I don't know. The agave has not come by in the lessons yet.
Right.
Um, but here, this is the bat. This is the long-nosed bat, and they are the main pollinators of the agave or agave plant. So if you do not have these bats, then you do not have these plants. So you
Mm.
wouldn't have more agave. And I mean, it's not used a lot in this side of the world, like where we stay, like in Delhi. I mean, in India, or I don't know. Does it? Is there a lot of agave used in New Zealand? Would you know?
I have no clue.
Yeah, so it's not very popular out here, but I have been seeing a growth and like a trend in the popularity of agave because I've seen it used in so many recipes, and it's used as a replacement for honey or maple syrup. I do not know how
Right.
sweet or how different it tastes. Yes, but if
Is
you do
it
not
is
have,
it like health wise? Is it nutritionally better than
uh,
maple syrup or sugar?
I'm not sure if
I
it is
think it.
better. Is maple healthier than honey? Let's see. Oh, sorry, not maple. Is agave healthier?
Yeah, if it's
Healthier.
nutritionally better, then it is bound to gain some popularity. But another thing we can't, reiterate this and emphasize this enough for everyone who thinks plants automatically grow fruits or plants automatically produce the paths we eat. They do not. Without pollinators, the whole agriculture industry would just be done and nothing would grow, no fruits, no vegetables, nothing. So, if you're one of those people who used to think that plants just randomly produce the parts of them that we eat or they just randomly produce fruits, then give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who still thinks that plants just randomly grow these things rather than intentionally after pollination is when they bear fruit or vegetables. Anyway,
Yeah,
Meghna, continue.
yeah, and I think we generally associate like honeybees and insects or
Mm,
smaller like birds or something like that with pollination. We don't ever like kind of like associate bats with pollinating. Like when we think
mm.
of bats, we only think of caves and we think of them as like hunting, and we don't necessarily think
Maybe
of fruit
maybe
bats. We
the
don't think of the.
Dracula
Yeah, we think of
vampire
everything negative. We think
bloodsucker.
of. Yes, yes, like I think with the wolves that like how Leocardia spoke in the last episode.
Yeah,
It's similar
yes.
with bats. Like they've always been villainized. Like they've never been shown in a positive light. And these are nectar feeding bats. So like one of my favorite things to do is to show people a fruit bat eating a banana. So there's like this bat conservation center. There's this really cute video on YouTube. They have the bat trapped in this little bundle, like of a towel, and the bat is eating a banana that someone's feeding, and it literally looks like a dog feeding on it. It's really
Yeah.
cute. So that I show that video to change people's perception on bats. So in this case, this particular plant, like agave plants, they're primarily pollinated at night by these nectar feeding bats. So
Right.
we don't realize how much importance every insect or every creature has. In this case, if the bats are not there, we're going to lose out on one of the nectar species. Like we're going to lose out on agave plants. So that it's really important that their environments are restored, so they don't have to go that far away and their reproduction cycles not put to threat.
Yeah, true. Absolutely true. I think thanks to Bram Stoker and Dracula, we have a very negative image of bats, as Meghna was saying. Um, I, up till a certain point, used to think bats only drink blood and nothing else. Their only food source is bloods. While there are bats that do drink blood, human blood included, um, they are vampire bats, but that is just one species because blood is not very nutrition rich. And that bat too has to go through a lot of digestive processes to actually able to digest the blood they drink. Most species of bats survive on fruits or small insects and things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, it's really interesting, but there like blue agave is one of the plants that is required for tequila to be refined. So you
wow.
need bats for your tequila. So
Right.
yeah. So if you do not have bats, you wouldn't actually be doing those tequila shots that you do when you go to a bar. Something to put into perspective, like, I mean, that they are the
Yeah.
pollinators and they are indirectly responsible for the tequila that you drink.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Yeah, that is a great comparison actually. Like, you know, even if you think about plants and fruits and vegetables, nobody would ever make that comparison very um you know, yeah, without
Readily.
help, very
Yeah,
readily, right?
and I mean, we don't really, like, when we think of alcohol, we don't really think of the source that it comes from.
Mm,
But when you think of the source, then you're like, oh yeah, it all comes from some kind of plant, like, like vodka is from
right,
potatoes, or wine is from grapes, or I mean, wine is still in your face, like you go to vineyards and everything, but a lot of other refined alcohols, you do not know what it comes from. So this is quite interesting to know that you actually need bats to make your tequila. So that's
right.
a fun fact for you guys, that that you figured out today. But oops, do you want to do anything else, like, quickly, or should we, like, start
Um,
the
Yeah, I think today's show will be a little shorter because we started a little bit late. But I think there's this whale shark story that we could probably end on.
sure.
This is a report from Mongabay again, where it's titled "Whale Sharks Released from Nets Along Along India's Coast as Fishers Turn Rescuers." Along India's western Arabian Sea coast, whale sharks are transitioning from hunted animals to rescued creatures thanks to the efforts of local fishers and the Wildlife Trust of India. Once targeted for their oil and meat, over 1,000 whale sharks have been freed from accidental entanglement in fishing nets since 2001. That is a great feat. WTI, that is the Wildlife Trust of India, has educated fishing communities and trained fishers in safe disentanglement techniques, even offering compensation for damaged nets. A recent rescue near Tiruvananthapuram saw fishers prioritizing the life of a trapped whale shark over their own potential income loss, carefully cutting away the net with WTI guidance. This shift demonstrates a growing conservation ethic and a recognition of the whale shark's importance to the marine ecosystem. I think this story highlights and showcases, everything that can go right in a particular situation, and everything has gone right for this particular community. The efforts, the government collaborating with the locals, and the locals then becoming advocates of this conservation policy.
Yeah, I think it's always a heartwarming story when, like, the hunters or the fishers, like, when they become the protectors,
Mm,
because they were the ones that actually caused harm, but then now they are the ones that are protecting.
Right.
And with the whale sharks, I think this is something that I mentioned before as well. Mike Pandey, one of India's filmmakers, he made a film called, I think, Silence of the Shore, or Shore of this. Yeah, Silence of the Shore, I think. It was a documentary highlighting how whale sharks were captured. So they used to like send a harpoon through the whale shark. They would tire the whale shark out for 1 or 2 hours in the ocean, because the whale shark would try to dive deep, but because it had the harpoon in it,
Yes,
it couldn't
similar
dive deep.
to
Whaling,
whaling, right?
whaling, yes, yes. And then they would like bring it back, and it used to be really cheap. Like, even when, like, in the sense that when they would cut the whale shark and sell, it would not be a lot of money that they would get. So it was not a very big income source for the kind of labor that they would put in to bring in a whale shark. And that documentary made ripples across the world, and then the Indian government took notice, and they put a stop to it, and then whale sharks were protected. But
Right.
after protecting the whale sharks, the fishermen also changed. So, there were like education programs, and there were different wildlife institutes that told them that it wasn't worth, like, it was more worth protecting these whale sharks than actually killing these whale sharks. So the fishermen also turned rescuers, because, whale sharks are really important for the filter feeding and the environment that they stay in. So it's great to know that these fishermen have now turned into rescuers, and they want to rescue the whale sharks, the same fishermen that used to fish them and hunt them down.
Yeah, I think Shows of Silence is available on YouTube for anyone to watch, and definitely go check that out. Yeah, this actually just conveys also the the importance of film, importance of what the kind of stuff we are doing, also reporting. We have seen multiple instances where there has been changes, there has been changes on a policy level, and it's really great that Wildlife Institute of India, which is the authority in India for all things wildlife and research about wildlife, um, is basically the government's arm for advising on any kind of wildlife policies. They have taken a particular educational program further to educate the local communities, because these conservational entities or conservation organizations are often understaffed, and their only way to implement this at scale is by educating the local people, where even without uh, you know a scientist or a conservationist present on site, they are effectively able to carry out a release or a disentanglement, for example, which I see, like, as I said, like, everything that had to go right did go right, which has led to this particular outcome. Really great to hear this.
Yeah, like, it's amazing that, I mean, even the fishermen probably, it might have taken time to get through to them, to make them realize that the whale sharks were not really, like, the effort to money ratio for a whale
Mm,
shark. It did not make sense. Then the fact that, like, the whale shark meat, I think, the same like whale meat, the consumption and the demand for it has reduced. So it's a lot on our public demand as well. Like, if we are going to change, then whatever is going to be produced, whatever is going to be caught, is also going to be changing. And with that, like, the slowly, like, over the last 25 years, things have changed, and, like, these fishermen now want to rescue these whale sharks when they see them.
yeah, beautiful image on your screens of um group of fishermen, just pushing this whale shark back into the sea. There you go. Now the whale shark is turned, and they're still pushing it out of the shallow waters towards you know more deeper waters. um it's really great. I think there was video that was circulating on Facebook a couple of weeks ago as well, where it was another group of fishermen disentangling a whale shark and you know releasing it back into the ocean. The other photo that is there in this report, and I like very much, is this educational program in schools. This is, I think, really, really important in these kinds of scenarios where you are, raising the next generation, they're raising the younger generation with these values at their very formative years. This 99% of the time ensures that when these young people grow up to be adults, they imbibe that same kind of value and advocate for the same issues and morals that they picked up as children. I feel this is another great outcome of this whole.
Um, yeah. Yeah, I think like educating children is obviously very, very, very important. So this is a great way that the fishermen that have turned rescuers, even the children, will protect the environment. It's always necessary for us to imbibe this in the future generations. It's great that we can end on something that is such a positive story. And yeah, so yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, yes. I'll just finish it off. Sorry that we keep having technical difficulties, but this is part of our process of learning. So we're going to kind of end the show here on this positive note of the whale shark story. As for you guys, what do you think about the moratorium? Like, should there be stricter laws in Brazil regarding soy product? And did you know about the soy products and that they were primarily used for like the meat industry? Does that change your perception on meat? Have you made ever any changes in terms of the environment? Like, we want to let you guys know all, like, I mean, we want to hear all of this from you guys, so let us know all of this in the comments. And as usual, Oops's message is that any kind of support in terms of comments and likes, it helps our growth, it helps us to reach out to more people. So please don't forget to like and subscribe. And you can hear us on all the platforms. We have a recorded version anywhere. So please give us a thumbs up if you liked it. If you didn't like it, give us a thumbs down. We appreciate all kinds of reactions. So that's it from me and Oops today. Hope you have a great Sunday, the rest of your Sunday. Um, and signing off from here. Bye from Oops and bye bye from me. Bye bye.